What's going on, everybody? You are listening to the Co-Living Show.
I'm Miller McSwain.
Hey, you cannot speak out of turn.
All right. Who are you?
I'm Craig Hurlop.
Okay. And I'm still Miller McSwain.
Oh, I'm just
There we
kidding.
go.
You can speak out of turn. You
All
are
right.
special. I'm just kidding.
Thank you.
You threw me off my mojo, man. But I like that because someone should always be trying to throw you off your mojo in order to get better. So
Yeah. Keep you on your toes.
anyway, speaking of toes, I hear Corey Enman has at least 10 toes.
He does. I don't know. Maybe he has a max of 10 toes.
Max 10?
Lose toes, extra toes.
Could you be born with a sixth toe?
For sure. But I feel like Corey's the kind of guy who got involved in a motorcycle accident and lost a couple.
Yeah, I could see that. He has probably between 8 and 11 toes, that's for sure.
That is for sure.
Let's get into this episode. What did you? Corey is a big ops guy, and he dropped some really good stuff, some good nuggets, especially around cleaning systems. That was probably like there was a ton of good stuff in here, but if I had to pull out one thing that was like, oh, that's good, it was his cleaning system. What about you?
Yeah.
What would be your one thing that?
Yeah, for us, we actually already started implementing this. So like we're recording this outro one day later, or this intro, and we actually already started implementing it. So he was talking about using Telegram to communicate with residents. So we're testing some of that out right now. But I think that this is an episode where this is a pen and paper. He gets super tactical about his operations, like step by step, what he does for certain things, what are the exact softwares that he used for certain things. So this is a pen and paper. You guys can definitely write down a lot of those tips.
Yeah, and guys, as we come up with more and more episodes, you're going to hear more and more people do things differently, and you're going to have the temptation to go do this cleaning system, and then next week we might interview somebody else, and there'll be a different cleaning system, and you might go implement that one. And know that these all work, but you got to figure out which one works best for you in your system. So I loved the cleaning system that Corey has here. Maybe that doesn't work for you in your business. So wait till the next episode, and we'll probably have somebody else come on and give a suggestion. So just don't get too overwhelmed with the stuff. Just go take one step action at a time. We have our community, don't we? And we've got a question from that community, Miller.
We do.
Don't we? Our friend Jeremy Babin from the Co-Living community on Facebook, which if you guys haven't gotten into yet, you should 100% be there. We're talking about parking renovations. So obviously we talk a lot about parking when looking at a co-living house, and oftentimes it's just street parking, right? Is there street parking where you're not going to get your neighbors upset? However, he is asking, is it common to add your own parking to a co-living property, similar to how we calculate adding bedrooms to a property? Miller, what's your take on that? Have you ever added parking?
Yeah, I'll probably throw it back to you in a sec. But yeah, personally, we have not done anything super crazy on the parking side. Like for me, like before you and I partnered, whenever I was acquiring things, I would hop on the Google Street View and take in everything that I could see. So driveway spots, like you were saying, street parking in front of our house, alongside of our house. But from the Google Street View, it would be an extra step for us to go look at the backyard to see if we could add parking or something like that. And honestly, that's just a rabbit hole I never really dove down. So what have you done about parking, Craig?
So yeah, historically, we've done the same thing. We just kind of try to save the costs and make sure we just buy in neighborhoods that no one cares about the street parking. However, I am looking more into, I don't think it costs a ton. You don't have to have a paved concrete area for them. But if you just have a gravel pad or whatever, that might make it so instead of parking parallelly on the street, you could park perpendicular to that, and you could probably get a lot more cars within your house. So I think that situation only happens if the house is beautiful and it's great, but man, the parking is not great, and you can spend an extra $3,000 to $5,000 to add additional parking if the front yard allows for that, and it doesn't also disrupt the flow of your neighborhood. If everyone else has got beautiful manicured lawns and you got an HOA especially, you will devalue the property a little bit by turning it into your front yard into a gravel pit. So know that you may want to reconvert that back to grass when you decide to sell.
Yeah, I think it is important to think about your neighborhood. Even if there aren't rules against some of this, let's, as a group, like everyone in co-living, I think should be very forward looking and thinking, hey, if I were to pave over every one of my front yards and start parking cars there, like what's the city going to start to think? Are they going to introduce pro co-living legislation or like anti? And when we're doing things like that, it probably is more anti. So there definitely are people that will put gravel in the front yard and everything, but take into consideration your neighborhood, look around. The other thing that I've heard of people doing, if like your side yard is large enough, you can pave or gravel or whatever the backyard, and then maybe you drive through the side yard in order to get back there. So that's less visible. So I would be more likely to do some sort of parking renovation that way than I would to do it in the front yard.
Gotcha. Love it. Cool, man. I feel like we've been talking too much. You ready to bring Corey on the show?
Let's do it.
Corey Enman. Welcome to the show, my friend. How you doing today, dude?
I am fantastic. I appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, we're super pumped to have you on, man. I was excited meeting you last year at the conference and excited to have you on the show now. Come full
Yeah.
circle.
Yeah. It's funny in this space. It's always good to meet people in person because I meet so many people through Zoom and I see them in their little box. And then finally, after we meet a year later, a year and a half, 2 years later in person, it's just like such a cool experience.
Yeah, totally. And that is like the unique thing about today, right? But I always think that when you meet someone in person, I always remember them a lot more. And I feel like I've got a real relationship with them. So definitely get out to conferences and meet people in person.
For
But
sure.
Corey, let's get us started. Who are you? Where are you at now? Let's just get started with like where you're at right now, and then we'll kind of backtrack into how you got there.
Yeah, right now, so I live in Gilbert, Arizona. So right now, I have the largest co-living property management company here in Phoenix. We're PadSplit's preferred property manager. I'm a real estate agent. I have technically a white glove service where we take investors from A to Z, from acquisition all the way into management. And then I'm about to launch my co-living collective, which is a co-living mastermind here in Phoenix, with really the goal of driving co-living as an asset class and an affordable living solution into like mainstream here in Phoenix, regulations, things like that, so that we're the leaders of it and we're the example. Once they start regulating it and taxing it and figuring out of the solution, we want to become a model that they follow. So that's where I'm at right now.
Oh, I love that. I definitely want to get into like how you're cooperating with the government because I think that's big. It's like when you're a big player, you need municipalities as a tailwind, not a headwind. And Airbnb had it as a headwind. Let's learn from Airbnb and let's get municipalities on our side.
For sure.
Corey, how did you learn about co-living? How did you figure this stuff out? What were you doing before?
Yeah, good question. So I grew up originally in New England. I'm from New Hampshire.
Let's go.
I was an athlete. I had the opportunity to play college football. I got a scholarship. Went to college in Kansas, and then I transferred to Connecticut. Finished my 4-year football career there. Had a really good, successful career. I was just inducted into my College Football Hall of Fame. That's that little trophy right there. A
Oh,
couple
cool.
years ago. It was very cool. Cool to bring my kids back there to see, like, hey, look, I was pretty good. And then I moved out to California. I had always wanted to go to California. My brother had lived out there. And really, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. Who really does when they're 20, 21, and they just finished school. So I had naturally got into fitness. And then I became a personal trainer in 2003. So a long time ago. And then that kind of grew. I became a trainer and I was pretty good at it. Not to be like, oh, but I was a pretty good trainer. But I really didn't understand money. I was brought up Northeast is very blue collar, very hard work, very, if you didn't earn it or if you didn't suffer, you didn't earn it. So I had a lot of bad money programming. So I always knew how to work hard. I didn't have a good understanding of money and wealth. So I ended up getting into training, but then I got introduced to a financial services company that was kind of on the network marketing side, which network marketing has its good and its bad. But I knew I was like, worst case scenario, no matter how it works out, I'm going to learn about money. And I really did. But the byproduct, what really happened was I ended up learning about how to kind of run a business. So I ended up in that company being like a director, trained hundreds of people on the products and things like that. I did presentations. I built a team. I did conference calls. So I really got into a more entrepreneurial mindset, but I hated it. I hated financial services. I hated wearing a suit and tie every day. That's why you very rarely see me in it. And it just didn't feel good. I was sitting in an office all day long and I came from fitness. So I got back into the fitness industry, but my mindset had shifted. And then I became a manager. And then very shortly after that, I was like, I can't work for other people. I need to own my own business. So I started a boot camp out in the park back in 2009. And by 2013, same thing. I was working, hustling, was a good trainer, but I wasn't hitting the financial place that I wanted to hit. And I had been reading and doing lots of personal growth and lots of books. And that was part of that entrepreneurial drive. And I got into a mastermind where it was a fitness business mastermind. I got with a mentor. I paid for a mastermind for the first time in my life, of course, that I could not afford. And that decision really changed my life. I ended up learning how to market. And that decision, my income that year in 2013, when I joined that mastermind, I had never made more than 35,000. And I went from 35,000 to 88 that year to 185 the following to 385 to 785. So my fitness business exploded. I bought into the Fit Body Bootcamp franchise. And at one point, I owned 4 Fit Body Bootcamp franchises in Los Angeles, right up until COVID hit, which was really fun owning gyms in Los Angeles during COVID. COVID hit, and then I was just pretty done. My wife worked at Warner Brothers. She was in high-level finance. We kind of sat down and said, you know what? Let's get out of here. Let's sell the house. We had bought a house in 2015, which in Los Angeles by 2022 was worth almost double. Let's sell the house, get out of here. Both of our older kids were going to go to school in Grand Canyon University, which is here in Phoenix. So we're like, let's go to Phoenix. We had been here a bunch of times, and we moved. And I was like, I'm done with fitness. I never want to do fitness again. And I had always wanted to get in real estate. And the thing that got me is one night I was walking, I was doing a workout, listening to Bigger Pockets, and I heard Sam Wiegert's podcast about co-living. Mm-hmm. And I knew the fix and flip game. I knew the long-term rentals. I knew the multi-family. I knew like where the market was at the time. And that was 2022. It was at the peak, right? It was when interest rates were still low, but we were at the peak, and I knew it was going to start to change. And I heard his podcast, and I was like, man, co-living is brilliant. It's good in a down market. It's good in an up market. So then I had started following him, got into his mastermind, and here we are. Now I've been doing that only literally all in on co-living for now 3.5 years. I was coaching that challenge with him for the last 2.5 years, probably 50 challenges now. And now my life is completely different. It's all co-living.
I always love to ask the question to athletes, how can you apply the stuff that you learned in sports to co-living investing?
Oh, I would say especially with football is a very different sport. I've coached now for years. I played 6 different sports, but I excelled in football. And just the level of, there's no quit, right? There's no such thing as quitting, right? So the amount of pain, physical and emotional, that you go through as an athlete, especially in college. And back when I was in college, the coaches were still kind of crazy, where they would literally try to kill you to see if you could tough it out. And so like when you're an entrepreneur, especially whether it's co-living or anything else, you really have to you have to be able to overcome adversity. And in sports, especially as athletes, that's all it is. Every single day you're overcoming adversity, dropping balls, losing football games, getting beat out at your position, getting hurt, injured, things that you can't control. No matter what, either you overcome that adversity or you just don't get to play anymore. Right. So in real estate, if you don't overcome, there is 100% going to be adversity in real estate. Right. There's not a real estate person on the planet that doesn't have that story where it's like, I did this and this is where I struggled. And it's the same reason I have a property management company now. It's because I screwed it up, did everything wrong on my first house, even though I was coaching it and teaching others. And then my house was a disaster, and I finally went back, fixed it. And then I was like, hey, there's a need. I can do that here. But it's definitely that overcoming adversity and just continuing to figure out solutions, just like it does in sports.
Yeah, I love that. I think athletes sometimes make some of the best entrepreneurs because you get hit, you get beat. And like quitting is never an option with an athlete, and in entrepreneurship too. It's like the perfect analogy. So you get into Sam's course, and you pay the big bucks. I'm sure there's a lot of people that pay the big bucks still and then don't do anything. So what made you actually take action from that course?
So in 2013, that was when I joined my first mastermind, and it was way more expensive. I think it was like $4,000 down and then $1,800 a month for a 12-month agreement. And I had $500 in my account. I was like, when I purchased that, I was like, here's the thing. When you pay big amounts, depending on the amount and the value, your brain goes to a different place. It's like, okay, now I could not afford that. So I had no choice. I was like, how do I now make $1,800 extra a month? That's literally how much I made total. So it forced me to take action because I literally could not afford that monthly bill if I didn't. And what's crazy is, for me, it was very much ego. I had to get my own ego out of the way. My ego had ran my business. My ego had been like, I'm a good trainer. My ego was like, oh, I want to do it and be successful this way with this theme and this motto and this fitness thing. And really, I had to get out of my own way and start listening to a mentor or somebody that knew what the heck they were doing. And it was like literally one email sequence that I just copied and pasted, didn't put my own spin on it, that gave me like literally 100 new members, where it was like, I got out of the way, trusted somebody else. So by the time I got into real estate, I understood the power of mastermind. and coachability. So I just wanted to find one that I really liked and trusted, the mentor, right? Because I've been a part of masterminds since 2013. I've always been a part of multiple ones. And a lot of times the people who lead them, yeah, they might have financial success, but I like to be around people that I want to follow in other areas. They're good husbands or they're good parents, right? Like, I consider myself a good husband. I love my wife. I consider myself a good dad. I love my kids. Money isn't the end all be all for me. So these guys that have hundreds of millions of dollars, but their marriage is terrible or they're cheating or those types of things, right? So I always wanted to be a part of mastermind where I trusted and liked people. So that's what kind of drew me in to Sam. And since with Sam, like, we were just in a place where it's like we had quit our job. Like, I had quit fitness completely and my wife quit finance. So we were like, we're all in. So it's kind of like that burning the bridge, right? So we're all in, let's go. So I joined his group in May, and by July we had bought our first co-living house. And then by November we had bought our second one, right? So we were just like, let's go.
Yeah. And so I think you mentioned an important thing there, getting your ego out of the way and joining these groups. Even if you think you already know everything about whatever it is, getting in these mastermind groups can be hugely valuable. So even there's a mastermind that me and Corey are in, along with Sam, COO, Justin. Like, we're all in this larger mastermind with other co-living operators. So even like, you guys may look at me and Craig and be like, oh, those guys must know everything. They're the ones running the podcast. We definitely don't. There's lots of things that I get from hopping on that mastermind with the other top operators in the country, different stories, different skills, different whatever the new thing is this week, the new issue someone's running into. We're all kind of able to like group brainstorm things like this kind of at that level. So you guys never feel like you grow out of masterminds. In fact, I would say if you're not in them right now, you're probably behind the curve. Definitely the biggest people in the industries go through these different levels. Like joining a mastermind with 1,000 other people for X number of dollars. And then eventually you're probably in the one with 4 or 5 members and you're all like the top dogs. So it never goes away. To just keep joining those masterminds, keep learning from other people.
And it's the same with sports, right? In regard, like, the greatest athletes in the world still have a coach, right? And that's the power of the mastermind, is when you're around people that are doing the same thing, this energy, like, it's like your ideas plus my ideas. It's not 1 + 1 = 2. It's like 1 + 1 = 3. It's like, whoa, I never even thought of that. And because what you say and what you're doing triggers something in me, and it's like, oh, what if we do this? And it's just this exponential power when you get around like-minded people all focused on the same thing. Power of mastermind is really powerful.
Yeah. By joining the mastermind, let's talk about Sam's for a second. What are some mistakes that you did not make that you could foresee? You know the old version of you. By joining this, I'm sure you avoided some stuff. What do you think you avoided?
Oh, man. Definitely figuring things, all the little things. There's millions of little things in real estate, right? Especially with co-living. Like multifamily, long-term rentals. It's really like even property management. It's not that there's not many little things, but there are like thousands of little things in co-living that you need to know, especially on the operations side. Even like knowing what label maker to use or what colors to do or what would be the best bed frame or what's the best marketing. There's a million things that you need to know or that you should know that if you took and figured it out yourself, it would take you years. So that it's that speed. It's like typically when you pay for a mastermind, you are paying for speed. You're paying for access to knowledge and proximity of people that already have done it. Now, of course, like I said, I knew the answers and then I still went and messed it up. The cool thing is like I had the answers. So once I messed it up, I was able to quickly fix it, as opposed to if you're not a part of a group and you go and make a mistake, let's say you mess up and you buy the wrong everything, bought locks, and now you don't know how to communicate to your people, and now there's like people moving in, and now you have no cameras, and you have all this stuff happening, and you have a terrible tenant that doesn't pay, and they smoke weed or whatever, like all the things that happen, and you're like, what do I do? And you don't have that reference point of someone to talk to, or yeah, I went through this. This isn't that big of a deal. It's normal. Do this and this, and you'll be out of it. So there's a lot of power in overcoming adversity and knowing what to do next.
What are your thoughts on like the niche mastermind, like co-living real estate mastermind versus a more broad life mastermind, like a GoBundance or something like that?
Good question. So I've been a part of a bunch, right? I've been a part of business ones, and I've been a part of when I had my fitness franchise. when I was part of just the regular like success business one, the lessons are good, but man, the value in the niche is so powerful, right? Because like I said, I just, there's literally hundreds of little things that can either speed you up or totally slow you down that you don't get in the general like go abundance type ones, right? Those are more like, hey, how's your business structure? How's this? Where's your overall? But man, if I'm in the day to day, I'm not getting that. And quite honestly, when you go to those other non-niche, those are people that might have a barber, or they might have a different type of business, or they have something that, yeah, you could take some of their business stuff, like their 30,000 foot view, but they're not supporting and helping you in the things you really need to do and implement in your day to day. Hey, how do I keep my houses clean? When they don't have no idea of that business, it really doesn't help, right? So in regards to like day to day and really exploding the systems of your business, the niche masterminds are way more powerful than like the general. But I think you should be in both, because with both, if you can afford it, with both, you do have that niche, and then you do have that family, or that, like, hey, where's my vision stretching? Because usually in those, there's people that are above you that have tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, where they're just doing life different. And those are lessons you don't get in a niche co-living mastermind. You get those in a big mastermind where people are very successful.
Yeah. Corey, I think I'm with you. So I'm in both. I'm in a lot of co-living specific type things. Plus I'm in more general life / business type mastermind. And I will say one big benefit, like Corey said, you should definitely be in both. And if I were to just spitball, I'd say you should probably join the co-living specific stuff first so that you gain some success. But whenever you're in one of those general type masterminds, big benefit over there is out of the box thinking. So like Corey was saying, there could be like a barber in this group. There could be a plumber, like whatever. And yeah, they have different business problems. But for example, I was talking with one of my guys in that general mastermind pretty recently about marketing our co-living rooms. How can we get more people interested? And we haven't taken action on this yet, but this is the sort of idea you can get. He was like, oh, in our self-storage business, we'll do rent the unit for $1 for the first month. And then it switches to whatever normal type schedule. That's something I never would have thought of in the co-living space, but it's in a adjacent type field that you can start pulling ideas from. So that's one of the benefits of the more general.
Yeah, you think about that. Like I've had a couple rooms in one of my houses that have been empty for a little while. Like I'm pretty sure I would bet if I could get somebody to pay for $1 that first month, it's still, if it's been empty, right? If I can get them in for $1, but they're committed now to 12 months. Yeah, that's brilliant and makes sense. And that's exactly the point. I might do that today.
Yeah. Corey, I want to talk a little bit about like how you approach things now versus you did in the beginning. So when you bought your first house, what were you looking for in the house? What were you looking for in the neighborhood? All that. And how has that changed as you gain experience?
Ooh, good question. So when I bought the first one, and I remember it was so exciting just because when you start to do co-living and you look at houses very differently, right? And you realize like, hey, there's not a lot of people looking at these houses. They don't go in looking for like, oh, this house is boxy and kind of ugly and needs work. Yeah, that's what we want. So when I was looking, I really didn't understand location very well. I understood like, hey, parking, and I want to have parking. So the parking was good, but I didn't do enough research on the area of the city where people wanted to live, right? So the cool thing is like now I'm in Phoenix, like, and back when I started, man, 3.5 years ago, there was nobody doing co-living. There sure as hell wasn't any co-living property management companies. And so and quite honestly, I think I was like the second challenge ever of Sam's. So we were all really new to it. I just was like, man, this is brilliant. So I remember on the house I had that my first house is 7.3. I wouldn't do a 7-bed now at all. And the house was old. It needed a ton of renovations. I didn't do a good job with the contractor. It's like, you need to go through those mistakes or find somebody. Now I limit those mistakes for my investors because I know all this stuff. Like I'm in this market now. There's so many people now in these markets that know the answers and can save you all that pain. I was naive with the real estate side of it, with buying the house, with getting concessions or even like invoice authorization type stuff. And then, area it's at is not the best part of the city. So it's a little bit harder filling it. So those would be the things.
Yeah. We just had an additional episode on invoice authorization. So if you want to learn more about that, go listen to that past episode with Matt Osman. But Corey, I did wanted to ask you, you mentioned you wouldn't buy a 7-bedroom anymore. Is that too few bedrooms or why not?
Yeah, I think it's too few bedrooms.
Okay. What's your minimum?
I would say 8, but it also depends on the market though, right? Because here in Phoenix right now, because the market is down, which I love, I'm looking for all in under 500. That's with reno and everything, and we can get 11. We can get 11 beds.
Wow.
So these houses
And how
out
many
here now,
bathrooms?
yeah, 4.
4. Okay.
So
So do you have a
literally,
bed to bath ratio that you like to keep?
I liked it 3-1. I don't like 4-1 at all.
Okay.
Just because, and here's the other thing, right? You have to learn and you have to move with the market. Here in Phoenix, 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, actually 2 years ago, PadSplit didn't exist, right? So those first houses, they were 4-1s. They didn't have the nicest pictures. They didn't have the nice stuff. They didn't furnish the kitchens, things like that. And those things were renting like that. And now what's happening is there's like almost 200 houses now and over 1,500 rooms. And now you're competing against these other houses. So if you have a house that doesn't have plates and it doesn't have a toaster, it doesn't have a coffee machine, or it doesn't have a nice, good pictures or anything like that, it's going to be a lot harder to rent those out just because the competition is different. So Here now I'm looking for, like I'm about to purchase one myself, and it'll be an 11-4 when it's done. It's exact same floor plan of the 11-4 we just finished and we're furnishing right now. And I already know the numbers. I already know everything that it's going to happen. So really anything 7, it's just too expensive here, right? Because for a 7 bed, you're looking at 800-ish a room. So 5,600. But for a 7 bed, you're looking at, it's a smaller house. You're going to pay 400 and then reno. You're not going to get the cash flow. Now, in a year from now, or let's say, or 2, where there's a lot less and the market's better, and 7 beds is still cash flowing. We're spoiled right now because we're still at the front of this thing, and we can still net cash flow $2,000. But if you're net cash flowing a few hundred and that's good, then sure, I'm willing to go back to 7.
Hey guys, the tool I've been talking about forever, Co-Living Pro, is now officially live. So some of the biggest problems that I've encountered around co-living are always on the marketing side. So you can think of Co-Living Pro as a marketing software or a tool to help you overcome some of these marketing issues that we all run into in the co-living space. So number 1, it helps you determine what to price your room at and then how to change that price over time. And that's actually a free tool. You can go there to colivingpro.io, and there's a little like rentometer type tool where you can punch in an address, punch in a zip, punch in a city, and kind of see what rooms might rent for there. But it does that for you. And number 2, historically, for us to keep our rooms operating at full capacity, especially when we're off of PadSplit, it's meant that we had to post on Zillow, post on Zumper, post on Apartments, post on Roomies, post on all these places. And with just a 5-bedroom house, that's already 20 listings right there, which is a lot of work, a lot of time and effort. So Co-Living Pro helps you solve this. You just make your listing on this one site, and it pushes it to Zillow, pushes it to Zumper, and we even support any platform with the manual listing manager. So you can still be on Apartments, still be on Roomies, still be on PadSplit, still be on anything. And it's kind of a wizard that helps you stay organized, your VA stay organized. It shows you what rooms need to be posted where with just quick copy-paste prompts. Copy your rent over, copy your description over, boom, you're good to go. And number 3, historically, now that you're on all these sites, we always had to hop in daily or at least weekly to keep these listings up at the top, keep the pricing up to date. So Co-Living Pro solves that for you too. It's making those adjustments for you on a daily basis, even an hourly basis, to make sure your listings are updated across your platforms. So you guys know everything I've always done has been free. The community is free. This podcast is free. I'm super proud of that and definitely going to keep doing all that. But this tool is paid, but I feel comfortable doing that because the numbers are honestly pretty insane. So if you go to Co-Living Pro, there is a calculator where you can do this for your own situation. But let's take that example earlier of the 1 5-bedroom property. From that, we estimate you'll make an extra $1,400 a year in extra rent and reduced vacancy. And that is 5x what the tool costs. Let me say that again. This tool produces 5x the return of what it costs. So in this example, that's actually a better return than most co-living properties themselves, being around 15, 16%. So seriously, to me, this is a no-brainer. I think you should totally go sign up. So head over to colivingpro.io. This is the tool that I built for my own business, and I'm so happy that I can finally share it with you guys. And back to the episode. Yeah, so Corey, you mentioned a couple of times this good market, bad market terminology. Earlier, you were saying co-living works in either one, and then you were just talking about how you feel like things are rolling pretty well with this bad market that that you said that you have going on. So kind of how are you thinking about co-living? When you say good market and bad market, what do you mean? And how does it work in each of those? You said that you could have success in both.
Yeah. So it's more about housing prices, right? Because it's housing prices and then what are the rooms renting for in that market? So here in Phoenix, the housing prices they're kind of medium, right? So they're around 400. You can get a good size house for 400 in the areas that aren't the best, right? But they're perfect for co-living. And then with renovations, you can get those in cash flow really well. In the East Valley of Phoenix, where it's a lot more, it's just socioeconomically more affluent. Now you're getting that same exact house for 100,000 more, and now your cash flow is going to be way less. So depending on the market of that, even of that area, right? We're in West Valley, East Valley. East Valley here in Phoenix is affluent. It's a little bit harder for housing prices. Now, are the room rental prices in the East Valley higher? Yes. But are they high enough to where we can get the same type of cash flow? No, not yet. So it really does depend on the market, the housing prices, and then the area of that city, right? And it's just like any other real estate, single family or whatever, multifamily, there are markets where things are just better. Phoenix just happens to be a good market right now, and I think it will be for a while just because the housing prices aren't so high. And there's a big area where there's a good demand for co-living, really.
Are there any like rules of thumb you use now that you're helping other people acquire? You mentioned A to Z, as far as like when people think about the purchase price and the room rent. Are there any rules of thumb there, or not so much?
With like obviously the area, I'm trying to find I like it to be around 15% cash on cash and around 1,500. Typically, I won't look below that just because there's no need, right? Why buy a house for 500 and get 8 bedrooms when you can buy one for 450 and get 11? Because they're still filling. And here they're filling. They are filling and there is a need. And there will be a need because it's Phoenix. So there's a need in all of these cities. There's a need, right? But like how much capital and how far you want your capital to go depends on the market, right? You can't if you don't have a ton of capital, you're not going into LA to start, right? You just need way more. But can you, because of room rents in LA, be successful at it? Yeah, eventually. But if you have the choice, I'd rather go into a market where your money goes further and you can still cash flow a lot more.
I think you got to figure out what works in your market. I know a guy in San Francisco that buys big houses in South San Francisco, and he puts 2 to 4 people in a room, and they pay $1,000 per bed. And so now you're getting $4,000 per room, and those numbers start to add up real quick. And so those more expensive cities, Phoenix, you're probably not doing that. No one's going to do that, right? Nope. So you kind of have to know your market, and as you kind of go up the echelon of expensiveness, the more packed in you can get. Corey, I've got a question for you too you've gone from the 1 to the 2 to the 10 and now 20. At each step of the way, how many phases operationally do you feel like you went through? Like phase 1, super scrappy, I'm sure. And then how can someone at phase 1 be prepared to get their systems in place so that phase 2 is pretty seamless?
Oh, you definitely need support. Co-living is not a solo jam. It's not, you have to have support, somebody that knows what they're doing. Let's see. I would say there's probably, for me right now, there's probably 4 different phases. It was like that new phase when I was getting my own and then making those mistakes. And really it's like, there's the purchase phase and then there's the management phase, right? Because we say it takes 30 to 45 days to purchase a property, but you're managing it for years, 30 or whatever. So the management side of it, I think, is still very much overlooked as opposed to like purchasing, investing, and buying. The management side of it is so important. If you don't have those systems, so I'd say that first phase was me figuring out scrappy, doing it all myself. And then once I made all the mistakes and fixed it, then it was like phase 2. It's okay, I don't want to use my own money this time. So I became more savvy. I learned more. My second house was an 11 bed. My first one was 7. My second one was 11. And that thing is a cash cow. And it was in a different location. And then when I built my company here, it's okay, that was like phase 3. It's like, now I'm starting to scale. Now I need help. Now I need to hire. Now we're at a place where I have about 100 rooms. I need another assistant property manager and another admin. So now we're starting to scale our property management. So it's like our business is continuing to grow. And I would say there's probably another phase after that where it's like, really scaling it to where we're going into other cities, which is probably what's going to happen next.
So,
Or just sell it. Because I'd rather, me personally, I'd rather just buy my own and cash flow and continue to buy my own and cash flow. That's my goals. I just want my houses to create income for me for the rest of my life.
Yeah. So Corey, like you, I was doing it all myself at one point, and that was definitely my phase one, scrappy, doing every single thing myself. And then there was, at some point, I was like, okay, I really do need to hire someone and start getting more professional about this. What do you think that trigger is, or what was the trigger for you to make that first hire and go from I'm doing everything to bringing in 1 people or 2 people or 3 people to start helping you out?
Yeah, it comes down to your time, right? Your time value. I've got kids. I've got a 15-year-old daughter and I got a 10-year-old son. I got 2 older ones. I coach high school football, girls high school football, flag football. So, and I love my family. Like I'm busy. Like I'm a busy guy. Real estate and all that stuff. So I want to have time for them. I don't want to be doing my business 24 hours a day. So there comes a point where it's like, I get to a point where it's like, why am I doing this? And there's a lot of things I don't like doing. You know what I mean? There are some things like this kind of stuff. I could talk on a podcast, Sam's Challenge, no problem. This stuff I love. It's easy. Marketing, going to places, conferences, speaking on stage. Awesome. Fun. I could do that energy wise all day. Doing the admin day-to-day stuff, I despise with all of my heart. So it gets to a point where it's like, not only is this taking forever, I should not be doing this, so I need to hand this off. And then it always comes down to that ego thing, right? It's like, well, they can't do it as well. Them doing 80% is better than me taking 17 hours a day trying to get it done and it taking way longer or not getting done at all because I'm just stalling because I'm whatever. So it's like time, like how valuable is your time and how fast do you want to scale? Because you cannot scale doing it by yourself. It's impossible in real estate.
Yeah. No, I think you bring up a good point. Back to our story a little bit. Whenever we were making that first hire, it was a question of like, all right, phase 0 or phase 1 or whatever is I have the W-2 and I'm making at the time like $80K a year or something like that. And it got to where I totally tapped out all of my outside of W-2 time. I was spending every hour of that working on our co-living business. And so it got to the point to where it's like, okay, yeah, we can hire someone who does 80% as good, just like you're talking about, Corey. And great, then we can continue to scale. But if I just stay at the W-2, but there's no extra time, there's no extra anything, it was like that point of being totally full and having no extra room to grow. So it will hit a point to where, hey, if you want to scale, like one brain, one person's time, like literally is not enough. And that would be like the very last point at which you should hire. Maybe you can hire before then too, if you don't want to get as stressed as me and Corey probably did. But yeah, for us, I think that was at like the 3rd or 4th house, probably like 20 or 30 tenants, something like that. It was like, man, W-2 and doing this, probably not going to happen. And then there was like a third phase too, where we started hiring and it's okay, now it is worth it for me to quit my job and start hopping back into the business more. So it kind of ebbs and flows, different phases there.
Yeah, in regards to like when they should, if you're doing co-living and let's say you're managing, it does take a lot, like the people, right? The relationships, because you are managing people. But what I would recommend or not recommend is don't quit your day job until you have income coming in from it, right? Because you don't want that stress of not having a job. I think a lot of what I learned in my first business with fitness, I got burnt a lot with trainers and employees and stuff. So I was very reluctant to hire people, but it gets to a point where it's okay, I have to trust, get myself out of the way, trust somebody, train them better, right? And a lot of that is also part of learning. And hey, what systems to use? How do you train them? But yeah, make sure that you have some financial income coming in, and then you have income coming in from your properties, and you're like, okay, I am being efficient. I do have systems, and I still don't have enough time. Okay, I need to hire and grow out of this.
Cool. All right, maybe we can start diving into some operations. So you mentioned that your second property was an 11-bed, right?
Yep.
Oh, geez. Okay. All right. So in our portfolio, we have one 10-bedroom that's a recent addition, but otherwise they've all been less than 10. And so I was talking with some guys in our mastermind, talking to Justin, talking to Dave, asking different people. And the consensus from them, at least, was that once you hit 10 beds and you start to go over that the household dynamic starts to change. The management gets like a whole new layer at that point. Has that been your experience, or do you see any distinction between bedroom counts where there's a hard cutoff? It's like, hey, stuff can start hitting the fan after this. We got to be really careful when we get over X number of beds.
Let's see. I have in my management portfolio, we have at least 6 properties that have 10 or more.
Okay.
And now we're going to have 3 with 11.
Okay.
I would say, especially if you don't have, I would say operationally, when you have that many, you have to have the right amount of stuff. You have to have enough storage. You have to have multiple washer dryers. Like the points of friction, you can't have one washer, one dryer, and more than 10 people. You're asking for it. So your operations have to be ready for that. And then you have to have a really good communication system with your people and cleaning. I think we have, and I think you guys know that our cleaning system and how we run it, I think is pretty efficient. And it has to be done because once you get that many people, personalities, it's hard to keep clean, right? Like kitchens and bathrooms. And then the dynamic of who's in there, whether it's male, female, who complains more, who doesn't, who's like really clean and who's not. You really have to balance that. And as you get up into those tens, I would say there's more of that. You're dealing with more of people complaining about things. So your systems they need to hold up. I would say with like 7s and 8s, there's just less complaining, right? Because there's less people. But if you don't have the right operations in place and you don't have enough fridge space, you don't have enough storage, you don't have good cleaning systems, you don't have cleaning supplies, you don't have those things in big houses, you're asking for it and it's going to be very operationally difficult.
I'm curious what your cleaning systems are. That's probably one of the questions that we get asked the most. Obviously, I'm sure you get a cleaner once a month, but I'm sure it gets dirty in that month. So, yeah, what do you have?
Yeah, so I've taken Sam's, he came up with the SWAT program back in the day, which is like sweep, wipe, attend to the shared bathroom, take out the trash. That's what SWAT stands for. And it basically was a checklist. And of course, I implemented incorrectly and with crappy accountability. So it didn't work. No one cleaned. And then I went back and fixed it and really I've taken it and really, I think, done a pretty good job of making it work in my houses. And basically how our SWAT works is it's still a checklist of everything that needs to be cleaned. And what happens is we assign each room a week. So this week, room 1, and they're reminded inside. We use Telegram because Telegram, and I know people use WhatsApp and Telegram. We use Telegram, the messaging app, for our houses. And the reason, and the most important reason I use Telegram and not WhatsApp is because you can schedule reminders. Because if you don't remind them, they do not pay attention and they will not do it. And it's way too much operationally when you have a ton of people. You cannot scale it. So we use Telegram and we have, okay, hey, this week it's room 1. Room 1 has the entire week to clean everything on the SWAT list. They have to take pictures of the completed work and they post it on Telegram so that the whole house can see. Now, what that does is 1, it forces them to do it. 2, it's peer pressure, right? Everybody sees that they did it. And 3, it's like accountability. If they didn't do it and they just post old pictures on there, somebody in the house is going to be like, they did not clean. And then we can check the cameras and things like that. And really, they only have to, let's say it's an 8-bed. They only have to clean 1 week out of every 8 because they have the entire week to clean. They usually do it on Saturday or Sunday of that week. They clean and now the house is clean. And then on Monday, it's room 2 and room 3. And then on Mondays, we have automatic, like one of our VAs, our admin goes and checks to see if they got it done. And if they didn't, we message them privately and we post on the group chat. And then we have the professional cleaners come once a month. So if you have people cleaning at least once a week, every week, and then the professionals come in and they'll deep clean the kitchens, bathrooms, and common areas, at any point it stays pretty clean.
Have you found that it's good to have one person responsible for all the cleaning each week? I've also heard of other people doing it where like room 1 is responsible for the kitchen. Room 2 is responsible for the living room. Room 3 is responsible for taking out the trash this week. And that rotates on a weekly basis. Or is that just too confusing?
Yeah, I think that would be hard scalability wise, like reminding them, right? Because it's like, hey, we schedule it for the year, right? Yeah. On Monday, room 1, room 2, room 3. Now we have it with PadSplit race turnover. So maybe room 3, there isn't somebody in room 3 that week. It's not really going to get that dirty, right? And we tell them, hey, there's no room 3 this week. If everybody could just make sure to pick up after yourself, we'll get started on week 4. Or we'll try to actually schedule the professional cleaning in that week where there isn't somebody. But if it were like, it would be hard because some people clean better than others, right? Some are terrible at cleaning. So doing certain areas, I find there would be more like they're not cleaning their area very well, blah, blah, blah. But if they all are forced to clean everything, it just makes it's almost like it's more fair, right? It's like, okay, they have to clean everything, and so do I. Bathrooms, everything. And we found it works. Every single house of ours, and we have, let's see, we're adding 7 more. So we're at over 40 houses right now. And we have 40 house chats where every single week, 40 people are posting their pictures of clean rooms. And if they're not, we usually have 6 or 7 that forget. And then we have reminders that go out on Saturday. And then we have our admin that will reach out if they didn't do it after all the reminders. Hey, and then usually that gets it by Tuesday. They've all cleaned.
Yeah. So Corey, so you're having to have people to monitor this system and manage the system and make sure that everyone is cleaning. How, or have you guys thought about this? And if so, like, how have you thought about just hiring the cleaner to come do like a second clean during the month? Like, and maybe we can approach this from other investors out there who are maybe running our sort of system where, yeah, we do just pay for the cleaners all the time just so we don't have to take over that headache. How should they consider having the people start to implement this?
Yeah, no, 100%. It's a good question. I would say it's cash flow. And like you said, like, how much of a headache do you want, or do you have the systems in place? When we have one VA that can manage all of it right now. So it's not a ton. When I was starting out, I probably had 10 houses where I was doing it myself, where it wasn't that much. You just go through on Sundays, and whoever didn't do it, you just look. But in regards to like, should they, I look at it this way. Like, we have cleaners that come twice a week to my house, right? When I have it twice a month, we're messier. We don't clean up as much. I make a mess. I leave plates. I know somebody's coming to pick up. So I am more messy. And if I know a professional's coming and I don't own the house, I don't give a damn. I'm going to be more messy. So it really depends on, okay, do you want to implement these systems where, one, they have more accountability and they're more ownership, and it costs less, right? Because I only have cleaners once a month. I don't need cleaners twice a month. If I wanted to, cleaners twice a month plus having the SWAT, our house would be freaking immaculate all the time. I would do it in my own house because I'm spending on my cash flow. If I'm net cash flowing $2,000, then why the hell not? I'll do 2 every 2 weeks, and I'll make them clean just for the accountability side. Not because they're doing an amazing job, but because it's fair, right? Because they only have to clean 1 week out of every 8, out of every 10, out of every 11. You know what I mean? You can clean 1 week in every 8 without it being hard. But it totally depends on cash flow. And yes, do you have the systems in place where it's not a headache? And if you don't, then do you have the cash flow to do it? Or is it the headache worth it? I'm just going to have somebody do it twice a week, and it's good enough. Perfect. That's going to work for them.
What if they don't post? What if they go ghost?
Yep. So what we'll do is we'll post on Telegram, right? We tag them on Telegram. And then if we don't see them that day, we text them on their cell phone. Okay. You can't hide that. Everybody has their phone. So we'll message them on Telegram, and then we'll just immediately message them on PadSplit and on their cell phone, just to be like, hey, you didn't do that. And that works almost 100% of the time.
Okay. So like, really great comprehensive way of cleaning systems. If you're wondering about a cleaning system, I would just copy exactly what Corey said. That's the gold right there. What other systems, Corey, do you think is probably the most important for limiting tenant conflict and increasing retention?
Screening and communication, right? You definitely have to have some sort of messaging system where you can communicate with everybody at the same time. I truly think that they all need to be in relationship. They need to know who's who. They need to communicate, and they need to be adults, right? It's like, hey, can whoever left the mess in the bathroom clean it up, please? And they need to learn how to talk nicely. So I would say they need to learn how to communicate, and you can teach that, because a lot of times you have to teach these people how to live with other people. A lot of them haven't, or they're not good at it, or they have no tact, and they're just like, who's the slob that left this in the bathroom? And it's like, hey, there's a nicer way to say this. Say it like this next time, where it's like you're teaching them how to be in a community environment. But really the most important one is screening. So if you don't have a good screening process, forget it. And that's what I did wrong. My first house, we come from a place, especially if it's your first one, where it's like bleeding heart, desperation, like you want to fill the rooms, and you want to, oh, I'm so sorry that you had those 2 felonies and they definitely weren't your fault. And your baby mama isn't an alcoholic and all that stuff. And you're like, all right, I'll give you that chance. And 9.5 or 9.99 out of 10, that's going to backfire on you. We've gotten to the point where we're pretty strict with our screening, even with PadSplit, because PadSplit has their screening and then we do ours on top. And we have a full on, here's how we run the house. Here's what we expect of you. Do you do this? And if you do, this isn't the house for you. If you smoke anything, if you vape, cigarettes, cigar, anything, we end the call. And we're not. What we found is smokers almost 100% of the time are problems within the house. They cause other problems, whether it's cleanliness, whether it's smoking, whether it's whatever. So if you smoke, you're not allowed in any of our houses.
Okay. So that's your smoking policy. What are some other hard draws that you make? What else are your eliminating criteria?
Yeah, obviously no smoking, no guns or weapons, no pets. With service animals, this is a big thing in the challenge. People are like, what about service animals? And it's like, here's the thing with service animals or emotional support animals, co-living houses just aren't the best place for them. They're not. If you really care about your pet, and I love animals, they don't belong in that house. So I know by law, you're not allowed to discriminate with service animals. So what we do is we listen, yeah, we've got we have multiple people that have allergies, which if they do or they don't, whatever, they do. But then it's like, hey, yes, we accept them. However, there's rules. They can't bark. They can't be alone in the house without you there. You have to take it with you, right? There's things, we don't have a yard that's good for it. Whatever the reason is that I will find to make it not a suitable place for a pet. And if they really truly is a really service animal, that they need that service animal, and that service animal is trained very specifically, they're usually not going to be in a house like that. Emotional support is very different. But I've had a couple where we've let it in and it was an absolute mess. Because there's always somebody that doesn't like animals and doesn't like pets. Now they're complaining. And then there's extra cleanup, and there's poop, and there's pee, and there's this, and then there's smells. There's when they move out, there's just so much. When it's like, hey, listen, there's probably another house that would be better for you and your pet.
Yeah. Yeah. Me and Craig took over management of a property recently. And yeah, it was some policy prior to that was like, yeah, you can have ESAs, but they have to stay in your room, like that kind of policy. And so far, it was actually 2 houses. Yeah, we've seen that it's very difficult for tenants or pets to adhere to to such a policy. Obviously, they do need to go outside on occasion and need to do things that they need to do outside. So yeah, it's easier if it's all or nothing, I would say. Making the exceptions like that have definitely caused issues in our houses. So
because these people work, right? So how many work?
Yeah.
They all work a full-time job. So if you're leaving your animal there, they're in the room for 8 hours.
Yeah.
What are they going to do? We had one dog. It was I felt bad for the dog because the dog destroyed the room, peed and pooped all over the bed. She would wash her sheets every night and put it over it. And it was insanity. And it was like, it wasn't a good place for her. It wasn't a good place for the dog. The dog couldn't wait to get out. It was anxious. It's not good.
Yeah.
Pets, no thanks. Smoking, pets, and no kids.
Okay.
No kids. We're okay with guests, but there are rules with guests. And if they break the rules with guests, then they won't be allowed to have guests.
So
but there are times where I'm like, you know what? Maybe we should just not. We should eliminate guests completely too, because that can cause issues too.
Okay, so actually, let's dive in on the guest thing just a little bit, because you're the first. So most of your properties are PadSplit, right? Mm-hmm. Or all of them? Okay, so PadSplit's policy is no guests, and I've never heard of a PadSplit operator that does allow them. The only people I hear that allow them are people who are outside the platform. So how do you allow such a policy that PadSplit doesn't directly? And what's been your experience there?
Yeah, so when we do our screening, we let them know, hey, you are allowed guests. They have to be that. It's the same. Like my own houses are not PadSplit, and I learned with Sam and that their philosophy is guests. There's guests allowed, right? You can have overnight guests. There are no overnight guests allowed in PadSplit. Still for us too, but there are guests during the day. One, because I don't need people being like, oh, they had somebody come over and then this person had guests, and it's like, you know what? Let's be adults. If you have guests, they have to be gone by quiet hours. Mm. The second they violate that and somebody stays overnight, they're no longer allowed guests. If it happens again, then we just give them a notice to vacate. PadSplit makes it easier to vacate them, just in general. So that's why I think we're able to do it. We've only had, really, quite honestly, we haven't had too many issues. We have more issues with private doors, with sneaking in guests when they have private doors outside, exterior doors, than just having guests over to hang out or whatever. But it hasn't been too much of an issue. And when it is, we just say, hey, guys, unfortunately, and I usually will just do it to the one person that's taking advantage of it. Hey, you're not allowed to have guests. It happened in my own house where we had overnight guest rule, but he had his girlfriend sleeping over there all the time. He had his kids sleeping in there, which was not allowed. She was vaping in the kitchen while cooking, which wasn't allowed. And I was like, hey, man, unfortunately, I can't have you having your guests over anymore.
Yeah.
You know, depends on your systems and how much communication. I couldn't do any of the management that we do with a different messaging without being able to message them, without cameras, and without having the screening we do. It would be a nightmare if we did, which it was before I started all these things.
Yeah. Okay. So then maybe 2 last screening questions then. What do you guys do for credit and for criminal history? Are there certain crimes that aren't allowed? Like, how do you break this down to be black and white?
Yeah. With PadSplit, they do the pre-screening. And then with we'll ask, did you have any felonies? And then if they explain it, depending on when it was. And quite honestly, I tell my screeners, listen, would you allow this person to live in your house with you? And if the answer is not yes, then do not accept them. And that's kind of that's our guide. If they don't smoke, drinking, like no excessive drinking. We let no excessive drinking, no smoking, no weapons, no kids. And so when they no, because what happens is, of course, they'll still lie. And then we record all of our screening calls. So we let them know, hey, we're going to record this for training purposes. And I've had people where it's like, I go into the room and it's like, I smell weed, right? Like, and they're like, oh, you guys said I could. It's like, no, we didn't. 100% wasn't happening. Oh yeah, I told you guys. Nope. And literally bring up their call and play it. I had one guy where he was like playing dumb. I'm like, no, we screened it. No, it's not allowed. And he's like, no, you guys said. I said, okay. Brought it up on the phone, played it for him, where she's like, there's no smoking. Okay. And he was like, oh man. And he moved out after that because he knew, and then blamed us. But yeah. Like the felonies, it has to be pretty far back. But usually we all mess up. I mean, DUIs, I don't really care. I had one back in the day. But if there's usually, you can tell there's a pattern. And quite honestly, if they don't smoke, a lot of them don't have those things. It's not like prejudice or the smoking. It's like a lot of those issues are around the same type of thing. You know what I mean? So felonies, and then credit. I'm not really concerned about credit. We check. PadSplit checks their job. From my houses, I want 3 times the rent. I want to make sure that they've had a job. Like, if they haven't kept a job for longer than 6 months, we'll probably deny them, especially if it's one of my own. If you're not using PadSplit and you're doing your own, credit isn't as much, because up until literally a year ago, my credit was still not that great. It's hard to have good credit, especially with this demographic of people where they're working and they're hustling and things happen. It's tough. So I'm not so big on credit as I am a full-time job for a long time. When they've held a job for over a year, that tells me they're reliable, they haven't get fired. But if they're like, oh, I just started with this job. Okay, great. How long did you work at your one prior to that? Oh, 3 months. How long did you work at your one prior to that? They're like, oh, 3 months. I'll call then and be like, that's when we're like, there's too many red flags. That's when we'll do that additional screening, give a call and be like, okay, we're good.
Okay.
Really, income. I just want to make sure they can pay. We'll train you on all the ways to be a better person in the house, but I want to make sure that you can pay your rent and have the solutions. Like, having a car is important, I think, because there's the Uber and the jobs that you can get when something happens, right? If you get fired from your job, but you have a car, you have the ability to still pay a rent. If you don't, and you lose your job, that's very difficult.
Yeah, I think the income point is huge on the full time and the long time. We don't have the long time criteria, but I think that's a good point. But do the math for your, So do the math for your own market. But at least in our market, if you work minimum wage full time, then our rent is like 30% or less than their take homes. So then credit becomes really not an issue, because like our rooms are so cheap, as long as they do have literally minimum wage, then we're good to go. So that's a requirement that we removed recently.
Yeah. And credit, I'll look if they have missed the last 5 missed payments on their credit card, like right now. All right, now there's red flags. But if their credit score is high 5s, low 6s, a lot are high 5s, low 6s. Like, that's about average to where this demographic is. And if they can keep a job, and a lot of them are student loans and things like that. So I'll look at it. I'm not rejecting somebody for credit unless it's like for something and they've got the last 6 payments of the last 6 months not paid. Then I'm like, yeah, it's not going to work. Because if they're not paying them at all, they're not paying us.
Yep. Cool. All right, well, Corey, we're going to start getting into the end of the show here. So I'm going to kick us into the big three questions that me and Craig ask every time. So question number one, Corey, what's one tool or system that you use in your business that you could not live without?
Tool, it would have to be Telegram.
Okay.
Like having a good messaging system. Yeah, without Telegram, we cannot manage any of our houses the way we do. No way.
Awesome. Yep. Very good. We're considering switching from WhatsApp for reasons that you mentioned. Ditto. All right. Question number two. Since you're involved with A to Z, you can take this whichever direction you want to, but what's one transaction or operator, housemate issue? What's one horror story that you've experienced and what did it teach you? Juicy time, story time. Let's go.
Oh man, this is easy. So I didn't screen my first house. The first guy, he told me his sob story, but he had played college football. So I was like, all right, maybe he has discipline. After like 2 months of being there, he stopped paying. But I was able, through peer pressure of co-living, I was able to get him out. But the second guy, he was the worst. He was a military vet, but he sold me on his story. Also a former felon. His baby mama was a recovering alcoholic, or supposedly. And so they had 2 kids. They weren't living with him, and they weren't going to live in our house. And she was in rehab, and he's just trying to get his life together. And very well spoken, good dude. Everything was good. Now, I didn't have cleaning things in place. I didn't have cameras. I didn't have digital locks. I had no systems in place. In fact, the other members at the house didn't really know the systems either. So they didn't know what was allowed and what wasn't allowed. Long story short, he didn't pay for a solid 3 months. And at one point, he had 2 kids, 8 and 5. He would go to work at night, leave them alone at the house, an 8 and a 5-year-old, just by themselves. The other members of the house thought that was normal because I had done such a terrible job. And then it became so bad because my wife, we were looking at the water bill and we're like, why is the water bill so much? There's only 4 people living in the house. And come to find out, I was so fed up with him not paying and then them just running the house. I'm like, I am flying there. I'm filing an eviction on Monday. We're putting in cameras, digital locks, blah, blah, blah. And I guess from what the other members told me, the cameras were what pissed him off the most, which is why he wanted to leave. But come to find out, not only did he have his baby mama also living in the room, they had another kid. So there were 5 of them living in, and it was the dining room with no closet. I had put just a door on the dining room, and that was the room. So it was the smallest room we had with no closet, 5 people living in there, and it was next to the bathroom. They had basically commandeered that entire bathroom. So I've got 9 people in the house when I thought I only had 4. And with these little kids' handprints, it looked like a horror movie. Handprints all over the room, all over the house. And when I got there, he had moved out. And that was the point where I was like, that's it. I changed every digital lock. We installed cameras everywhere, outside, exterior. I painted that room. And when I left, and this is something that's important to my business now, when I left, because it was my home, right? It was my first co-living home. I wanted to have pride in it. When I left that house, I remember walking out the door being like, I would live here. I would feel comfortable living here now. And that's what I try to do with all of our properties. Like, would I feel comfortable living in this house and be happy and prideful? And that was what started it all. And then I came back here, and that's when PadSplit started. And I was like, wait a minute, there's a huge need for this. And eventually I'm going to own in Phoenix. I might as well just start a property management company so that I know it gets done correctly. And then down the road, maybe I'll sell it, which here we are.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. So there's 9 people, and yet you might not have the unrelated occupant issue because so many of them were related. So
yeah, exactly. That's one way of looking at it.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. That sounds good, Corey. Question number 3. Outside of this podcast and mine and Craig's community, where are you learning the most about co-living today? So that people are totally well-rounded, totally buttoned up. Where should they be listening, reading, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, good point. There's a few operators who are really in the day-to-day, who know their stuff. Obviously, Sam has been doing it the longest. I think Sam's been an expert in it, and that's where I've learned most of my co-living stuff, from Sam's group. David Edwards, right, co-living operations. Dave's awesome. He's got that whole Texas area, and he has marketing. Dave's been doing it for a long time. I've learned a lot from Dave. And then you guys, right, like this, the players. Justin, who's Sam's property management owner and COO. It's still a very small community.
Yeah.
Here in Phoenix, there aren't many. There's just a couple I know of. Daniel Wang, I know he had a company. Pace and Jameel are here in Phoenix, but they're still very much sub 2. They're getting into the co-living space, but I don't know if they're as into the operations on a day-to-day as I am or our company. But yeah, like I would say Sam, Dave, us, you guys, Clara, there's some people that that have been doing it for a little while that you can find now. The cool thing is there's people now that you can find just by searching. Back when I started, no one was doing it. No one was doing co-living. So finding a property manager that did co-living was impossible. Now finding the room rates in these places was like impossible. Governments still were like, no thank, like all of that was so much harder. Now it's just much easier, especially if you get tied into one of those few.
Yeah.
We can all help you.
Yeah. If you guys don't recognize any of those names that Corey said, definitely start hopping in some of the Facebook groups and you'll see these recurring names. It's not as hard as it sounds. Nope. You just naturally get plugged in, and within a few weeks, you'll kind of know the folks that we're talking about there. So, all right. To wrap up, Corey, where can listeners find you, learn more about you, and connect with you directly? Maybe the Co-Living Collective that you mentioned. If you want to mention any of those services that you offer, that'd be great.
Yeah. I've tried to make it easy. So it's just my name, Corey Enman. I think on Instagram, it's Corey.Enman. On Twitter or X, it's Corey Enman. Facebook, it's Corey Enman. I was thinking about the co-living Corey. That might be good to just brand it and make it a lot easier for people to figure out who I am. The co-living Corey. And then the co-living collective is, you'll find that through Corey Enman, because that's going to be a very specific co-living niche mastermind here in Phoenix. And I really want to use that to drive co-living as an asset class, kind of like Airbnb, but do it the right way. And really, hey, this is going to be an affordable housing solution, and we want to be in partnership with these cities. My ultimate goal, like my long-term thing, is I would love to take some of these old rundown motels that are all over these cities and convert those into co-living spaces, because that's, I think, a win-win for everyone. That's a win-win for investors. It's a win-win for the city. It's a win-win for people, affordable housing, and if we're doing a good job and creating community in those places, as opposed to they're just kind of really run down and crappy. And I think it would be a really big deal. So find me at Corey Enman on all platforms.
Awesome. Yeah, very good. Yeah, hope you guys reach out. Corey's obviously got his heart in the right space, his mind in the right space. He's crushing it over there in Phoenix for sure. So, all right, Corey, thanks so much for hopping on, and we will talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate you guys.
All right. Thanks, Corey.
And that was Corey Enman. Miller, what'd you think of Corey?
Yeah, Corey's an awesome guy. I actually didn't even say this in the intro. I just thought about it. So Corey is one of the first co-living guys that I sort of got to know, kind of one directional, but I was writing the Bigger Pockets co-living book. And at that point, this is 3 years ago, maybe 2 years ago, I didn't know anyone else that was kind of doing co-living at any sort of scale beyond house hacking in their own house. And I found one of Sam Wiegert's 5-day challenges, which are fantastic. You guys should totally consider doing them. But I hop on there, I'm listening to Sam, and then Corey hops on there and talks for 45 minutes, an hour on the same exact stuff that he talked about today. This stuff has been proven. He was talking about the whole SWAT cleaning process and how he messages the households and does all that. And he was doing that 1.5 years, 2 years ago. So this just further reinforced how good some of these systems are. They're time tested at this point and optimized, and Corey's done a good job with them.
Love it. Yeah. If there's someone that you want to take operations advice, Miller's number one, but Corey is probably a close second. Definitely. Yeah. Feel free to reach out to Corey too. He was so gracious to provide his information on how to reach out to him. And so, yeah, hit him up. I'm sure he's in the co-living community, so join that. And just hit him up. So Miller, what do you say we get out of here?
Yeah, let's get out of here.
Before we do, make sure you give us a follow on Instagram. What's your handle again?
At Miller McSwain.
And I'm Craig Curlop, and we'll see y'all next time.
See ya.